COSATU Parliamentary Coordinator Mr. Matthew Parks joins us now as we reflect on the Congress's impact as well as contributions to the working class to date. Matthew, happy 40th anniversary. Congratulations. Look, tell us all about it. How are you celebrating your 40 years in the struggle for equality, for workers, labour rights and for the liberation of our people? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us. I think for us it's a momentous occasion. COSATU was formed in the darkest days of apartheid in 1985, when workers were treated a little better than slaves, especially black, coloured, Indian workers, also women as well. In that first decade, COSATU played a critical role in defeating the apartheid regime. You remember the mine workers' strike in 1987 helped force the apartheid regime to abandon apartheid, to come to the negotiation table a few years later, to lift the state of emergency and so forth. In 1994, 9 years after COSATU was formed, we achieved the democratic breakthrough, a internationally respected constitution. And today we have a variety of progressive labour laws that protect the rights of millions of workers, from the right to strike and collective bargaining, the right to work in a safe workplace, the right to equal pay for equal work, the right to protection from sexual harassment at the workplace, to paid maternity, parental, and other leave, to overtime. All of those were achievements of COSATU and also our predecessors in the South African Congress of Trade Unions. And these were not easy achievements. Today we're very far from where we were in 1994, and we're very far from where we were in 1985. But having said that, we still have so much further to go. We have a 1% economic growth rate. We need to get it to 3%. We have a 42% unemployment rate, which is a ticking time bomb. We remain the world's most unequal society, wrecked by poverty, despite many significant achievements and shifting of the funds by successive ANC-led administrations since 1994. Also, we have real problems of crime and corruption. So there are many issues we've got to deal with. But we can say that over these years, COSATU has played a significant role in South Africa's liberation, in our transition, and our maturing democracy. And I think that's for us something to celebrate. But when we see so many people unemployed, we just have to be constantly reminded we've got so much more that we all have to collectively work to deal with.
And absolutely on that point, Matthew, obviously South Africa is still in the tight grips of high unemployment figures, most concerning among youth as well as graduates. So how does the local workforce then, according to COSATU, look like, let's say 10 years from now, with some of your current interventions as well as plans by the trade unions and championing that you are championing and also wanting to ensure that reforms are immediately or progressively implemented in the protection as well as treatment of the workforce?
So we have to do the variety of issues simultaneously. We've got to do the short-term issues, the medium, the longer-term issues. We need to have a budget which really capacitates public services to provide the services that workers, working class communities, the economy depend upon. We've got to make sure we fix local government, not just to pay municipal workers their salaries, their pensions, but to deliver basic services to poor communities. We've got to make sure we stimulate the economy to create the jobs we need. We cannot sustain 4 out of 10 South Africans being unemployed. That is an absolute ticking time bomb. We're not expecting miracles overnight, but we need to see unemployment falling by at least 1% each quarter to give hope to 12 million people who are unemployed. We do need to invest more in quality public services, especially education, health, policing, to really begin to uplift our poorest communities. And we also need to lay the foundations for better lives. So the National Health Insurance provides a pathway to universal health care, which doesn't depend upon whether you're black or white or poor or rich. We've got to put in place comprehensive social security because we have 90% of South Africans who cannot afford to retire when they reach 65 years of age. There are many things we're making progress on, but again, we've got to deal with the fundamentals, and we also have to appreciate we don't have limitless time. Society is correctly impatient and correctly expects better from all of us.
And you're so right. I mean, the reality now, Matthew, is that Federation as well as Labour and trade unions now have a new crisis to deal or even focus on, like poverty and even new forms of inequality. In a highly evolving, competitive working social landscape with ever-rising costs of living. So how does COSATU then prepare to be ahead of these socio-economic challenges?
No, that's a fundamental challenge facing COSATU, one we've got to constantly come to terms and grapple with, because we can't just rely upon what happened in 1985. Somebody who was born in 1995 doesn't know about 1985.
True.
Has no idea what this apartheid devil is. We've got to make ourselves relevant to young people. But we're confident that as long as workers are facing exploitation, are facing abuse, are facing discrimination in the workplace, sexual harassment, are dealing with the issue of feeling losing their jobs, the issues of crime, unions will remain relevant. And that's where COSATU has to constantly come to play a leadership role and to address challenges. That's something we've constantly tried to do. It's not always easy. We had to intervene in 2019 to make sure we put in place an ESCOM debt relief package because electricity is a bloodline of the economy. We had put in place 2019 as well a national minimum wage, trying to raise the wages of 6 million vulnerable, often unorganized workers. We're having engagements now at NEDLEC about how to make sure that the labor laws evolve as the nature of the economy, as the nature of work evolves, to take care of Uber drivers, e-platform workers, workers who work from call centers, etc. We've recently launched COSATU, which is the domestic workers trade union, a very vulnerable, very large sector of employment of about 1 million workers. We've also helped to launch a union for taxi drivers as well, who also are highly exploited, highly abused often. So we've got to constantly deal with the issues, but also you've got to catch up with young people. You've got to respond to issues of pension funds. So last year, we put in place a two-part pension reforms to begin to say, can pension funds support workers during their career and in their retirement? Can we help give relief to workers whilst boosting savings? We've got to do much more about skills. We are facing a skills crisis, and when you have employers complain they don't have some of the most basic skills, which can easily be provided, that shows you a crisis in the system of education. So we've got to constantly say, what do we do to make workers more competitive, to invest in their skills, their career path, which also means boosting their earning potential. Because we're not alone in this world. There's another 196 countries in the world. We're all competing for domestic and foreign investment. And we've got to deal with our number one enemy, which is unemployment.
Absolutely. Matthew, wishing you 40 more years of the fight for equality right across the sectors. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. That was Mr. Matthew Parks there, COSATU's parliamentary coordinator, as the union celebrates 40 years of fighting for workers' rights, liberation, as well as equality.